it's always about money, isn't it? When it's about sex, then it's about sex.
You ready, Kenny? So before we get started, Carter had a few things to go over, and then we'll just go over the agenda, see if there's anything going that we need to talk about. So Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Just a real quick housekeeping item, if you will. We have scheduled on the week of the 21st 3 evenings associated with the budget review discussion. My question to you is whether or not you see the need for 3 evenings set aside. My opinion, I think, is that I think 2 evenings would probably suffice.
What are the dates?
That would be the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd.
I think it's 21st, 23, and 24. Regular meeting on 22.
Okay,
Yeah.
is that right? Okay, I'm sorry.
21
through
through
24. Yeah, I didn't mean to mix that up there. Let me see here real quickly.
That's a work session on 22. So.
Yeah, so
On the
21,
22nd.
23, 24.
Yeah, I think we were anticipating that the work session would be primarily budget
Okay.
related. And so if it's okay with you, 22nd and 23rd, I think would be wise to set aside. But I don't think we'll need all of those days. And so with your permission, can we free up Monday and Thursday? If I'm reading that correctly.
And not Friday,
And leave Friday open, yeah, that's right.
so it's just Tuesday and Wednesday.
Just Tuesday and Wednesday, right?
Council feel okay with that? That'd be enough?
Good, okay?
Yeah, got thumbs up for that.
Perfect, I appreciate that. And I was gonna ask you something else. And I have lost it, so I can't clean up that other item I was gonna visit with you about. So if it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, I'll jump right into the Plains building discussion. That's all right?
Right ahead.
The council entertained a public hearing the other night with regard to the Plains building and the livery building, and received comment and that kind of thing. Council did not offer any direction that evening and decided rather to choose another evening when we could have that conversation. My question to you is whether or not you feel comfortable giving direction this evening pertaining to a potential RFP and how that RFP should look, or if you would rather set aside a longer, more involved conversation, if you will, in a work session dedicated to that topic.
Sorry. Sean and then Dallas.
I'm for a work session. I think the GDA was right in asking us to move slowly on this. I think a work session would be more appropriate.
So I got a work session. I see a thumbs up there. Dallas, do you want to make a comment?
Bob had an idea of what to do with the property, I thought.
Well, yeah, yeah, go ahead.
And what does Liz want to do with the property? Because people ask me, what are we doing with the property? I actually, Phil Smith was out in front of his building. I said, do you know what the city wants to do with this property? Well, he said he had a conversation with Councilman Hopkins, and I don't know where our glide path is.
That's why work session.
So if can that be stated tonight? I just want to know what, I don't need a big work session to have them tell me. I just wondered what people have in mind.
Bob.
Yeah, well, I'll give you what I've talked about. Matter of fact, I had a conversation with Schmidt about it today. He was down there working on his building, and I just, telling him it really looks nice, and he's down there plotting what he's doing, and he said it outright. He says, I'm so glad you guys are tearing this down. He started talking about the trusses that are in the two most southern buildings. The building right adjacent to him it's just red iron, but it's still a good roof. All 3 of the roofs are good, but he said it would have been a crime to do that. And so really, I would like to see us go ahead with RFPs but make it so that there's an RFP for building essentially 1, 2, and 3, and the pink building, if you will. So we'd have RFPs, we'd ask people to put this together, and then we would say, you can bid on all of it, you can bid on 1, or you can bid on 2, in order to get some ideas out there floating. And I think we need to get those ideas out as soon as we can, but not make the RFP due in, a short time, because people want to work on this. There's going to have to be evaluations by architects. Granted, we've done a lot of that work for them, but the architects to get somebody to work with, and I'm sure there's going to be people come out of the wall. We have had people come out of the wall that are interested in parts of it. And so if we go ahead with RFPs, and then we sit down and we look at these proposals, if you will, pictures and graphs and whatever, in sometime 90 days or 120 days, that gives them a shot to get something started in calendar 2018. And so, and I'm thinking like 90 or 120 days. But we would look at these, give them 60 days to prepare them. And I think we ought to also take a look at it from an architectural standpoint. What are they going to do? I mean, we may get somebody that wants to scrape it all for the right price, like really, really, really big bucks. There's people that could be convinced of that, but personally, I think it's a problem historically for us if we do that. So,
Other thoughts? Chris?
I like the idea of the RFP. I like the idea of the RFP, individually or collectively, people can put them out, and then we take the highest bidder, and we don't presume to be some architectural geniuses.
Charlie?
I just think, I agree with Sean, I think we should look at a draft RFP, and we should own it when it goes out.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning, we should all say, that's the language we want in this RFP, before it goes out.
Mike?
Well, I agree with Charlie, but I'd be a little bit reluctant to say, okay, we're gonna sell it to the highest bidder, or even that we're gonna sell it, because there might be somebody comes along with a really good proposal that says, here's something that the city could do there, and a way that you could pay for it, and all that. And so I'd like to kind of keep all those options open.
Anybody else want to make a comment?
I will say this, Mike, that that kind of option's been open for a long time. But some people that want us to do things with it have no money and never come up with money. And so here we are.
Yeah.
And
Notice I added that they also say, here's how you could pay for it.
Yes, but that's the point. I don't know what money we have to pay for anything. I guess I'd have to hear about that. But my preference is that we come up with a good plan and put it out there and see if anybody wants to do it. And at some point, if we're gonna sell it, we have to sell it to the highest bidder. Or I guess under the law, we don't have to sell it at all. We can leave it sit there.
right.
So,
I like the casino idea.
The casino
oh,
idea.
please, Sean.
The casino idea isn't all bad once it starts soaking in. Bring in millions and millions of dollars.
Don't get him started on the casino.
And that's where it brings in millions and millions of dollars and tens and hundreds of thousands of
confidence
people
in
into the
anyone at
city,
the casino.
seriously.
It would bring in that much money, but we probably wouldn't get the revenue from it.
We have to figure out something.
Let's take a vote. See where everybody's at. So do we want to do an RFP? Those in favor, Regus, an RFP?
I'd like a draft RFP.
Or a draft
that we
RFP.
would discuss in a work
That
session.
we would discuss. So let's do it that way.
Well, so you still want to do a work session?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
So you just want to see this move forward
yeah,
with an
let me
RFP.
just talk about a
correct?
timing issue. If we ask for a draft RFP within the next 60 days, that's really pushing it to put it together. So that would be a draft RFP, and then you have to go to an RFP. So you essentially said we're not going to do anything in calendar 18 if we have a work session.
Carter.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I think what if I understand correctly, maybe I don't, what the suggestion is that we would put language together to come forward in a work session that would capture what we think needs to be included in the RFP. You guys give us direction, and then we release it to potential bidders.
Well, so you're saying draft the RFP?
Draft the
Yes, we
RFP,
would-
bring it to a work session, get your feedback.
Yeah.
I'm
And
sorry, I
then we-
misunderstood.
And then we would
Okay.
do that. That's,
Yeah.
I didn't.
Maybe
I thought we
we'll
were
like-
asking-
Maybe we'll like it exactly the way it's
No,
written.
no problem.
Maybe we'll tweak it.
Are you okay with that, Bob?
I can live with that, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can
Chris,
I
you
add?
okay?
I'm sorry.
Are you good with that? I know you would.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Jess.
Well, if council members are already feeling like just throw it out to the highest bidder, it might save a lot of time before they draft an RFP and with that language in there. But keep in mind, we did have a public hearing with some feedback on what to do with existing buildings and things like that. So I just don't wanna see an RFP and then we immediately scrap it when they spend all that time trying to put it together. So just,
Statute mandates highest bidder or not seller.
yeah.
So is that enough direction for you on that?
Can I ask one more question,
You
just to
bet.
be very clear? My assumption is that the parking lot areas that are kind of shaded with this greenish color are areas that would be retained for public use for parking moving forward? Is that a safe assumption to make?
Yep.
Okay, all right, so that'd be the south lot on the east and the north lot on the west.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else?
No, sir, thank you very
I
much.
apologize, sir, I misunderstood that. We're gonna go to two RFPs.
I agree, we gotta get going.
Okay.
I think Charlie wants to be the one to approve the RFP, the council approve the RFP.
Yeah.
And I agree with that.
Does anybody have anything on the agenda they want to discuss or clarifications?
Just one quick question, looking at our contract with Napa. I look at the pricing summary, and it says for non-Napa product price, if they buy something which is not in the Napa inventory, we're gonna have to pay them 10% above what it originally cost, the way I read this. So if somebody goes to the window and buys, for example, a windshield for a car, and it's not in a, well, whatever, they probably have windshields, but use that as an example.
Sure.
And they have to go get it from somebody else, and we gotta pay the price plus 10, is that correct?
Do you mind if I defer that question to
No,
Tracy or
not at all.
Councilman Hopkins, that is correct. But as the contract as it's written says that 90% of our parts come through this solution.
Come through
Total
what?
cost, 90% of the total cost of our parts have to come through this solution. So 10% of the cost can go outside of the solution, so we can shop wherever we want direct.
So if we have an expensive part, like a cylinder head for one of our loaders, that's $4,000, we have to pay Napa 10% on top of what Caterpillar charges.
Or we could go to Caterpillar direct.
We can still do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we will encourage that kind of thing, I hope.
Absolutely.
Same with expensive tires.
Yeah, the other thing is P cards. How are they affected by this? I didn't really see much addressing it.
We don't.
The what?
P cards,
Okay.
or company credit card for the city.
Purchasing cards, yeah. Go ahead.
So through this solution, Napa will invoice us once a month for all of the parts that are purchased for that month and charge to work orders.
Okay.
So instead of processing 120 P cards a week like I do now, I will only have to process 2 a month, one for the cost of the operation, one for the parts.
So the P
plus
card will
any
be
parts.
called into Napa?
They won't use a P card.
There won't be P
It's
cards?
just like charging on an account,
So,
basically.
yeah, it's
We'll go through the check process.
they bill monthly.
But we would still utilize our purchase cards to purchase outside of the Napa.
Okay. So after a year, we get an audit of what it could have cost us versus what it did? Is that where we're headed?
Right.
That's the way I read this. Okay, thank you.
Dallas.
And we have a clause that we can get out of it. It is different than the deal where we're stuck usually for 20 years and they can get out in a month. We can
What
get
deal
out-
was that? That
We
was-
can get into we can get out in a month or 60 days or something, but
20 years.
I'm concerned about our employee and what's happening to our employee.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I typically reserve employee discussions for executive session kinds of timeframe, if that's okay.
Okay. I'm just hoping our employees is gonna be taken care of. And then one other thing on the ordinance to be harsh with juveniles, you had some ideas, and I don't know that you've expressed those.
Oh, on the
On
MIP
On the MIP.
ordinance. Yeah, there are some amendments that I'm gonna wanna propose to that and to talk about, you know, mostly on the penalty section and things like that. I've never liked penalty sections where you sit there and say there shall be a minimum fine, incarceration or anything. I've always liked it where, you know, that's up to the judge, you know, where you sit there and say the maximum potential penalties are $750, 6 months. That's what the state MIP statute says. And, but I don't like it if you sit there and say, well, you have to find all these, you know, minimum of $50, $100 or whatever, or something. I don't like minimums on things. I think we can trust our judges to, you know, to not be too soft on things. So I'll be proposing some amendments like that. And I think there was one or two other things in there that I saw, but that was the main thing.
But this is the first reading tonight, isn't it? On the proposed, so you're gonna bring a couple amendments forward tonight?
Yeah, I can. And,
Because quite frankly, I'm against the whole thing. I think we have enough laws on the books to deal with this problem. But that's my uncertain opinion. I think a good part-time juvenile court judge will do more to take care of our children than punishments would in most cases.
Well, and Mr. Mayor, if I might, something that you guys will hear me talk about quite a bit. The whole business that, and MIPs is a good thing to focus on. One-size-fits-all sentencing does not work. And frankly, that's something that I would criticize the city and the municipal court in the past for doing. If you want to attack substance abuse and that kind of thing, what you really need to do is you need to sort out the individuals that need treatment, because there are a lot of people, juveniles as well as adults, that need substance abuse treatment, and that's really what they ultimately need if you really want to help them. There are some others that are not addicts, that don't have a substance abuse problem, whether they're juvenile or an adult, but they're just criminals in the sense that there's a law and I choose to violate that law. Well, those people are easy to deal with, but you have to sort them out. And if it's somebody that just, well, here's a law that I don't like, that I don't want to comply with, well, you just figure that out and then you punish those ones. You sort out the ones that need treatment and that, but that gatekeeping, that sorting those out is a very, very critical function, because if you just sit there and say, well, we're going to make all of these people go to treatment, that's just like if a doctor was to say, well, everybody that comes in needs a gallbladder operation or something. That's obviously not a good way of doing things. And so that's one of the things where I come from. And,
Is anybody else gonna make any amendments on that MIP at all? Is Mike the only one gonna make amendments on it? Because you said you're not, where you're not gonna make any
I just
amendments on
don't-
it.
I'm in a mind.
I just wanna make sure we don't run
I'm in
into
a
the-
mind state right now, I just
the-
think it's punitive, and I would like to get our municipal court up and running with the new full-time judge, and then take a look if we're gonna need this juvenile judge, because that'll take a lot of the heat off, and I just, you give a kid a record right now, that shows a 6-month jail sentence on it, you know, it haunts them for life. And as he said, that some of them are criminals, some of them aren't, some of them are just at a Christmas party, but none of them are old enough to know that this black mark can be there for life, and it can interfere in many ways with their future life, and they're juvenile. And their dad gives them a beer at home, you know, and that kind of thing. So I just see a problem there, and have seen it in the past where it does haunt for a long time.
Mr. Mayor, there is one other thing, and I think that Councilman Laird could probably elaborate on this a little bit more than I have, and I always hesitate to think about Dallas elaborating. But, you know, you get into the business of having a potential jail sentence on an offense, you're also gonna have to get into the business of appointing lawyers for indigent kids. And, you know, you need to walk into that with your eyes open.
And that's the biggest one. I mentioned that previously.
Yeah.
Chris?
But isn't the jail sentence the only way where you could put them into a treatment program? Because absent that, it's monetary fine, and
It's-
that doesn't solve.
It's,
the
yeah,
one that needs help.
it's the cleanest and best way. There are ways that you can maneuver around things, but whenever you start trying to maneuver around something instead of trying to do it in the cleanest, best, most straightforward way, you get into problems.
Can you do it through a diversion process where you say you won't even end up with a record?
You can, but the problem is that if they, you know, if you're sitting there and you're talking about a truly indigent juvenile, and you say, well, okay, we're gonna put you into a diversion program, and the worst that we could do to you if you went to court and everything is tell you you have to pay a fine. Well, I don't have any money, I can't pay a fine, and you can't punish me for not paying it because I have nothing. Then there's no teeth, you know, there's no hammer to back up things. And so if you get a truly recalcitrant kid that just sits there and says, the hell with you, I'm not gonna do anything you tell me to, then you don't have, you know, you don't have that hammer behind you. And so that's the shortcoming of that. But yeah, that's one way that you can do that.
Well, but the issue is, if we say it's a 6-month jail sentence, I don't know of any kid that has money to hire a lawyer. And so they're all, when they start asking for lawyers, just when they get charged, they're entitled to it. Just because it carries the jail sentence. So if we take the position we have, well, we're not gonna give them jail, I don't know that any judge can really do that either. Because they're still entitled to any type of incarceration, and probation is considered incarceration on a certain level. And Supreme Court, that's what they've said in their wording. But we do have that problem, and then the expense of putting them in jail and the expense of hiring a lawyer, we have to consider all that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may make a quick suggestion, maybe that issue is something that we could have John take a look at, and maybe in your spare time, you could whip up a little brief for everybody.
Absolutely.
A little
Great job.
explanation of that. But
Lower the drinking age.
So if the state statute
18.
is the way you're stating it, why can't the police charge them under the state statute?
well, they could charge them and take them over to circuit court.
So if it's somebody that really needs jail, the city attorneys can look at that and say, hell, this kid has 5 MIPs, send him over to county court. So we don't really need that hammer here, do we? Because it's gonna be costly.
Not unless you wanna keep them in municipal court for some reason.
Not to jail them and not to hire lawyers for them. It'll break our city court if we get into that. I just want a smooth running organization, and if we got a bad problem, state statutes are there to put them over in county court and let Judge Huber's people handle it.
We always thought that the city engaged in that nefarious
Yeah.
kind of activity.
And I know Blonigan hated it, but if you've got, it's just like a 4th offense DUI or 3rd offense DUI, send them to county court, it's a felony. We can't deal with felonies here.
So Dallas got all of his questions and all of his things out
Thank
right
you.
now, right?
I'm done, yeah, I'm gonna go home now.
No, I'm just saying for this
And
issue.
nobody's even listening, Cindy. He said, this looks like a boring meeting. I'm staying home and watching Fox News.
I'll see you soon.
Yeah. Exactly.
Really quick, and I would be remiss if I didn't, we want to welcome Chief Solberg. I know some introduce yourselves to him, but we want to welcome you, and we'll see you out there shortly, and you're swearing in. And
Not
so
swearing
welcome.
at, swearing in.
I've had both.
All right.
Welcome aboard.
Indeed.
Alrighty, about 5 minutes and we'll head on out.